September 30th, 1955. Highway 466, California. A 24-year-old legend pulled over on the side of the road, engine still warm, a ticket in his hand. 2 hours later, he'd be dead. The officer who wrote that ticket carried a secret for 50 years. What he saw that afternoon haunted him until his dying day. It wasn't just a speeding violation. It was a warning, a premonition, a final chance that slipped through everyone's finger. The report sat buried in a desk drawer, stamped a confidential, because what that patrolman witnessed didn't match the official story, not even close. Here is the story. The California desert in late September is unforgiving. The sun hangs low and heavy, turning the asphalt into waves of liquid heat. Highway 99 stretches out like a ribbon thrown across the wasteland, endless and lonely. This is James Dean country, wide open, rebellious, free. It's 1955, and James Dean is untouchable. 3 films, that's all it took. East of Eden made him a star, a rebel without a cause made him an icon, and a giant, still being edited in the Warner Brothers lot, would make him immortal. But on this Friday afternoon, none of that matters. He's not thinking about Hollywood. He's not thinking about the scripts piling up on his manager's desk or the million-dollar offers flooding in. He's thinking about speed. Dean is behind the wheel of his brand-new Porsche 550 Spyder, silver with racing stripes. He calls it a little bastard, painted right there on the rear fender in cursive script. It's a machine built for one purpose, to go fast. And Dean, obsessed with racing, has entered a competition in Salinas. He's driving the car there himself, breaking it in, feeling every curve, every gear shift, every ounce of power beneath his hands. Beside him sits Rolf Wutherich, his mechanic, a German immigrant with grease under his fingernails and respect for speed in his veins. Behind them in a Ford station wagon, Dean's friends follow with spare parts and equipment. This is supposed to be a good day, a fun day, the kind of day that makes you feel alive. The sun is warm. The radio is off. Dean likes the sound of the engine too much to cover it with music. True, but there's something in the air. A tension, a weight, the kind you feel before a storm, even when the sky is clear. Wutherich would later say he felt it. That strange electric hum of fate turning its gears. Dean is driving fast, too fast. But that's who he is. That's what he does. That's what he does. Speed is his religion. The road is his church. And then the red lights flash behind him. A California Highway Patrol motorcycle. Officer Otie V. Hunter. Dean pulls over near the town of Bakersfield. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. The Porsche idles like a caged animal. Hunter approaches slowly, sunglasses reflecting the desert glare. He's been a patrolman for 11 years. He's seen reckless drivers before. But when he looks at the young man in the silver race car, something shifts. This isn't just another speeding ticket. This is James Dean. And Officer Hunter knows exactly who he is. His daughter has his poster on her bedroom wall. A Rebel Without a Cause is the movie every teenager in America is talking about. But Hunter isn't starstruck. He's worried. Because the look in Dean's eyes isn't excitement. It's something else. Something darker. Dean had been restless for weeks. Those who knew him well could see it. The late nights, the chain smoking, the way he'd stare out windows like he was searching for something just beyond the horizon. Success was supposed to feel good, but for James Dean, it felt like a cage. Hollywood wanted to own him. They wanted to mold him, control him, package him into something safe and predictable. But Dean was wild, untamable. He raced motorcycles. He played bongos at 3 a.m. Oh, he quoted poetry and philosophy to confused executives who just wanted him to smile for the camera. His friends worried, especially about the racing. Dean had been obsessed with it for months, spending every free moment at tracks, talking to drivers, learning about engines and aerodynamics. He bought the Porsche 550 Spyder just 9 days earlier. Paid $7,000 for it. His agent begged him not to race. Warner Brothers had a clause in his contract forbidding it. Too dangerous, too risky. If something happened to him, millions of dollars would vanish. But Dean didn't care about contracts. He cared about feeling alive. The morning of September 30th started like any other, a poem. Dean woke up in his small rented house in Sherman Oaks. He had coffee. He fed his cat. He called Rolf and confirmed the plan. They'd leave around noon, drive up to Salinas, get the car registered for Saturday's race. Simple. But his uncle, Charles Nolan Dean, had called that morning. Worried. He'd had a bad dream. Told James to be careful. Dean laughed it off. I'm always careful, Uncle Charlie. He wasn't. At Competition Motors in Hollywood, where Dean picked up Rolf, the mechanics wished him luck. One of them, a man named George Barris, looked at the little bastardess script on the car and shook his head. That's a bad name for a car, Jimmy. Dean just smiled. It's a bad car. They left Los Angeles around 1:30 p.m. The plan was to take it easy, cruise up Highway 99, then cut over to Highway 466 and into Salinas. But Dean couldn't help himself. The Porsche was too responsive, the road too open. Within an hour, he was pushing 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. Rolf said nothing. He trusted Dean's skill, but even he felt it, that strange, creeping dread. Quick question. Have you ever had a moment where you knew something was wrong, but you ignored it anyway? A voice in your head telling you to stop, to turn around, to choose differently? Let us know in the comments. By 3:30 p.m., they were approaching Bakersfield. Dean was doing about 65 in a 45 zone. Not reckless by his standards, but enough, and that's when Officer Hunter lit him up. Dean cursed under his breath, pulled over, turned off the engine. The desert was silent except for the ticking of hot metal cooling down. Hunter walked up slowly, ticket book already in hand. A license and registration. Dean handed them over. No smile, no charm. He knew what was coming. Hunter looked at the license, looked at Dean, looked at the Porsche. You know how fast you were going? Fast enough to get pulled over, I guess. Hunter didn't laugh. He wrote the ticket in silence, 65 and a 45. Fine. $25. But then he did something unusual. He leaned down, looked Dean directly in the eyes, and he spoke. You need to slow down. It wasn't the words. It was the way he said them. Not like a cop delivering a warning. Like a father speaking to a son. There was weight in his voice. Concern. Fear even. Dean met his gaze. For a moment, the mask slipped. The rebel. The icon. The untouchable star. For just a second, Officer Hunter saw the kid underneath, a 24-year-old boy who was tired, who was scared, who was running from something he couldn't name. I mean it, Hunter continued, who were driving a rocket ship on wheels. These roads aren't made for that kind of speed, especially not up ahead. Dean nodded, slowly. I'll be careful. Will you? The question hung in the air. Dean didn't answer. He took the ticket, folded it, shoved it in his jacket pocket. Hunter stepped back. Watched as the silver Porsche roared back to life and disappeared down the highway. That should have been the end of it. A routine traffic stop, a $25 ticket, over and done. But Officer Otie Hunter couldn't shake it. He stood on the side of the road for a long time after Dean left. Something was wrong. He felt it in his gut. That kid was going to kill himself. Hunter almost got back on his motorcycle and followed him. Almost. But his shift was ending. He had a wife waiting at home. Dinner getting cold on the table, so he let it go. He drove back to the station, filled out the report, speeding violation, nothing unusual. But then at the bottom of the page, he added something, a note, handwritten, not part of the standard form. Subject appeared distracted, driving erratically, advised to slow down, expressed concern for subject's safety. Recommend follow-up. He underlined to recommend follow-up. Then he filed the report and went home. 2 hours later, the call came in. Fatal accident. Highway 466, junction with Highway 41. A silver Porsche 550 Spyder. Driver pronounced dead at the scene. Hunter's blood turned to ice. He grabbed his keys, drove to the crash site even though he wasn't on duty, even though it wasn't his jurisdiction. He had to see it, had to know. When he arrived, the sun was setting. The wreckage was worse than he imagined. The Porsche looked like it had been crumpled by a giant fist. The front end was completely destroyed, the frame twisted, the engine thrown 30 feet from the car. James Dean was still inside. They'd covered him with a sheet, but Hunter could see the blood. Could see the shape of the body, small and broken. Rolf Wutherick had been thrown from the car, broken jaw, broken leg, but alive, somehow alive. Hunter walked around the wreckage slowly. Witnesses were giving statements. A college student named Donald Turnopseed had been driving a Ford Tudor. He turned left onto Highway 466, right into Dean's path. Never saw him coming. The Porsche was too low, too fast, moving like a silver bullet in the fading light. Dean never had a chance. The impact was instantaneous. The Porsche hit the Ford at roughly 90 miles per hour. The steering column crushed Dean's chest. His neck snapped. Death was immediate. But here's what haunted Hunter. As he stood there, listening to the witness statements, reconstructing the accident in his mind, he realized something. Dean hadn't slowed down. After the ticket, after the warning, he'd pushed harder, faster. One witness, a man named Tom Frederick, said he'd seen the Porsche earlier that day, pulled over at a gas station near Paso Robles. Dean had been joking with the attendant, revving the engine, showing off. The attendant told him to take it easy out there. Dean had laughed. "We're going to fly," he'd said, and he did. Right into eternity. Hunter returned to his patrol car, sat in the driver's seat, stared at his hands. He'd held the ticket book. He'd written the citation. He'd looked that boy in the eyes and warned him, and it hadn't mattered. And it hadn't mattered. That night, Hunter went home and wrote everything down. Every detail. Every word exchanged. Every feeling he'd had during that traffic stop. He wrote it in a notebook, not an official report, because he didn't know what else to do with it. He felt responsible, like he'd missed something, like he should have done more, should have arrested him, impounded the car, called Warner Brothers, something. But he hadn't. And now James Dean was dead. For 50 years, Officer Otie V. Hunter kept that notebook. He never showed it to anyone, not his wife, not his children, not the investigators who came asking questions after Dean's death. It was private, personal, a record of his own guilt. The official report was filed and forgotten. Speeding ticket. Routine traffic stop. Nothing unusual. The crash was ruled an accident. Turnip seed was found not at fault. Dean was driving too fast, simple as that. But the truth was more complicated. In 2005, a historian researching James Dean's final day discovered Hunter's original traffic citation in a storage facility in Bakersfield. It had been sitting in a box of archived police reports for decades. And attached to it was Hunter's handwritten note. Subject appeared distracted. Recommend follow-up. The historian reached out to Hunter's family. By then, the officer had passed away, but his son remembered the notebook, found it in his father's belongings after the funeral. He'd never read it. Didn't think it was important. Until now. The notebook revealed everything. Hunter had described Dean's demeanor in detail, the way he gripped the steering wheel, the way his jaw was clenched, the faraway look in his eyes. Hunter believed Dean wasn't just driving recklessly, he was running. From what Hunter didn't know, but he recognized the signs. He'd seen it before in young men coming back from Korea. That 1,000-yard stare, that reckless abandon. Dean had told him something else during the stop, something that wasn't in the official report. When Hunter asked where he was headed, Dean had said, "Salinas. For a race? You race professionally?" No. "I just like going fast. Feels like the only time I'm not pretending." Hunter had written that down. The only time I'm not pretending. It was a confession. A glimpse into the soul of a man the world thought they knew. James Dean, the rebel, the icon, the symbol of teenage angst and cool detachment. But inside he was drowning. The notebook also contained something else. A detail that was never made public. After writing the ticket, Hunter had walked back to his motorcycle, but before he drove away, he'd looked back at Dean, and Dean was still sitting there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead, not moving. Hunter almost went back, almost asked if he was okay. But then Dean started the engine and took off. That image haunted Hunter for the rest of his life. The boy in the silver car, alone, staring into nothing. The notebook was eventually donated to the James Dean Gallery in Fairmount, Indiana, Dean's hometown. It's kept in a glass case now. A relic, a warning, a reminder that fame doesn't protect you from yourself. And it answered a question people had been asking for decades. Could James Dean's death have been prevented? Hunter believed it could have. If someone had just slowed him down. If someone had made him stop. If someone had seen past the image and looked at the person underneath. But no one did. James Dean died doing what he loved. That's what they say. That's the story Hollywood tells. The rebel who lived fast and died young. Frozen in time. Forever 24. Forever beautiful. But that's not the whole truth. The truth is messier. Sadder. Dean didn't want to die. He wanted to live, but he didn't know how to slow down. Didn't know how to stop running. The world demanded too much of him. Expected him to be the character he played on screen, the misunderstood loner. The tortured soul. And he tried. God, he tried. He gave them everything, every ounce of emotion, every raw nerve, every broken piece of himself. But it wasn't enough. It's never enough. Officer Hunter's notebook reminds us of something important, that behind every legend is a person, a human being with fears and doubts and struggles. And sometimes those people need help. They need someone to see past the mask, to pull them over, literally and figuratively, and say, "You need to slow down." Dean got that warning. He didn't take it, not because he was reckless, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how. Because speed was the only thing that made sense in a world that was spinning too fast. So here's the question. If you saw someone you loved heading toward destruction, would you stop them? Or would you let them go, hoping they'd figure it out on their own? James Dean's story is a tragedy, but it's also a warning, a reminder that life is fragile, that fame is an illusion, that the people we put on pedestals are just as lost as the rest of us. And unfortunately, they don't make men like James Dean anymore.